Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you, James Lee, alcoholic.
James.
Sober since January 3rd, 84. Very glad to be here. I'm all talked out. I don't know, didn't I do this just a little while ago? I think so. It's a great topic. And by the way, anyone who knows me knows that I'm never all talked out, so don't worry about that. It's basically how we establish our relationship with God, right? I think I kind of talked about that this morning. So I was sitting there thinking, well, what can I add? And I thought, I'm kind of a didactic guy. I thought what I do is just share with you what I do today. I talked about my story. That's all the stuff that I did and how I established it. But I thought I'd share a little bit about what I do today. So I'd say it falls into two really distinct groups. The first is I believe that nothing will ensure immunity as intensive work with other alcoholics. And so I try to do a lot of that. And how that works out for me lately is working with guys through the steps. And I moved recently to Tallahassee and from Chicago. When I was in Chicago, I was very plugged in, dug into AA there. I'd been there for 25 years. It's a long time. And I had a lot of relationships, worked with a lot of guys, had a bit of a reputation. I moved to Tallahassee. Nobody but Jay knew me, and I was a big shot for the big city, moving to Tallahassee. And they're like, "Who are you again?" And so I shared a little bit about one of the routes I took, which was working in corrections. And by the way, big props for the corrections dude in the back of the room there, and also taking a meeting into a homeless shelter in town. And those things, those meetings are amazing. And I think I shared with Angie earlier that my favorite meeting now is that meeting in the prison. And there's something about meeting with those guys in the prison. That's a well-run AA group, run by the guys who are in the prison. People who come from the outside are just guys. Anyway, so the other thing I tried to do when I moved to town was get the word out that I was looking for guys to work with, because I believe that nothing ensures immunity. It's intensive work with another alcoholic. And so right now I'm privileged to work with 3 guys, and this is why I feel this way, that it's really important for me to do this work. I shared earlier that what introduced me to the God of my understanding was working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's very important for me to continue the work, working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the best way today that I work the 12 steps is to walk with someone else while they're going through it. I heard a long time ago that if you take someone through the steps, you go through the steps yourself. And so one of the dudes, we're working on step 2, so we're going through We Agnostics. And I made a conscious decision to follow the direction in We Agnostics, which was, we encourage you to lay aside any prejudice you have against God. And so I said, I have a really good idea of God. I'm going to set this aside, even though it's a good one. I'm going to set it aside and see if I discover a new idea. And I did. And I don't know if I would have done that had I not been working with somebody through that. So that's the first thing. So thank God for these 3 guys. And I tell them, you guys are helping me more than anything I could ever do for you. The second thing I want to talk about is what I do with what I call my 11th step partner. This is a gentleman named Doug Way. He lives now outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He and I have known each other, I don't know how long, 15 years. He's 40 years sober. Is it 40? 41? I don't know. He's sober. And he and I share our 11 steps with each other. And what I mean by the 11 steps, I mean well, today it's 2016, so we don't write it out. We type out in an email the questions that are on page 86, which includes where was I resentful, dishonest, selfish? Do I need to share something with someone? Whom did I hurt? That sort of thing. And we answer those questions. I answer those questions in email, and I send them to him. And just like the book says, when we retire at night, we do this. And I try to do this every night. And I'm not perfect. I don't do it every night, but I do it most nights. And I started doing this. Doug and I started doing this with each other about 3 years ago. And I want you to know it has changed the depth of my relationship with God. And I believe that these steps are to be practiced as a way of life, designed for living. And part of that design is to kind of integrate the steps into my life on a daily basis. And that means I do certain things in the morning, I do certain things at night. And that 11th step every night has really helped me. So that's all I got to share. Thanks.
Thank you, James.
Ms. Jane next, please. Hi, everyone. My name's Jane, and I'm an alcoholic. And my sobriety date is September 24th, 1996. So I'll share with you a little bit about the evolution of my higher power. And I'll start with, just the God that I grew up with. I grew up in a really Irish Catholic family. I'll talk more about that tomorrow, but Catholicism played a major role in my childhood. As a matter of fact, the church was right on our street, on the corner of the street that I grew up on. And I went to Catholic elementary school and Catholic high school and all that, but I actually loved it. And I had some lovely influences from a child in the nuns and the priests that taught my siblings and myself and my friends. I had a really positive experience, and I loved God, and I loved Jesus, and I loved the Virgin Mary, and really I think I always felt like there was this God's eyes were watching me, so it helped me to be a good young person. I tried to live a good life. Yeah, of course I was mischievous and stuff, but I feel like God was always watching me, so I always wanted to be a good girl, until of course I hit my teens, and I hit my teenage rebellion like so many of us did. But up until then, I went to Mass every Sunday and prayed every day, and and I loved that. It satisfied me until it didn't, and until and I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But then I started to rebel, and I started to rebel against that too. But I always felt like I had a connection with God, until my tragedy hit. And when my tragedy hit, the first thing I said, really, as I was laying in the hospital bed, was like, what kind of a freaking God would do this to me? Why? I've been a good person my whole life. Why would God do this? I don't want to have anything to do with a God that would allow this to happen to me. I'm a good person. I've showed God that I've been a good person my whole life. So I took a detour, but, even, I'll tell you this, even when I was in the throes of my partying, and sometimes I really like to share this, and I say partying because when I was still capable and able to go to Mass on Sunday, I still would in all sorts of disrepair. I remember I would be up all night, drinking all night, smoking weed, doing coke, having an affair with a married man, and then I would go back to my hometown on Sunday and do the readings at Mass. And I would have a drink, the side thing of my car, and I would probably smoke a joint too on the way to Mass, And I think they're still busting cops about it. One time I was like, this is a letter from St. Paul to the Filipinos instead of the Philippians. I was so stoned. But I felt like when I was going through that, I felt like God understood. Like, God, I'm going through this wild phase right now, but I know you got me, and you know my heart, and you know I'm good. Like, that was what I was thinking. So anyway, when the tragedy hit, I didn't want to have anything to do with God. I was done with God. Actually, the Catholic priest would come in to give communion, and I'd be like, I don't want it, turn around and go. And that happened, that happened for a long time. I mean, that's how I was for a long time, until on that hospital unit, I was on the spinal cord injury unit, and I remember going to physical therapy, and I remember there were these 3 African American guys who were in the room right next to me. Well, one was across the hall, the other 2 were in the room right next to me, and they were all paralyzed. One of them was quadriplegic, and the other one was paraplegic, and the other 2 were quadriplegics. And I remember just looking at them and going in and just visiting. I would go into my wheelchair and visit them, and they would be smiling. And that's when I first started to see glimpses of God again, was how can these people smile like this? And then I would go to physical therapy in the physical therapy room, and I would be seeing, the bald kids who were going through cancer treatment. And then I would see the elderly who are getting like hip replacements and, like 80 years old, and they're, raising their legs and trying their best. And I'm like, I feel guilty. I have like this survivor, got this self-pity on, and look at that people. I'm surrounded by these brave souls. And that's when I started to see God in other people's eyes. And then I started opening up to the idea of God again. And then it clicked that it wasn't God doing bad things to me. It was me doing those things to myself because I was putting myself in the role of God. And when that realization kicked in, my whole life changed, and I started becoming open to the idea of God again. And I went on this journey, and I read a lot of like Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth, and I looked into the Mother Earth and all this stuff. And eventually, I came right back around to Catholicism, and my routine for years was go to my 10:30 AA meeting and then noon mass, and that's where I kind of felt spiritually fulfilled. I love the ritual, I love the tradition, and I feel like home. That being said, I feel like my God is way too big to fit into any one religion. I was fortunate enough, a couple of years ago, I attended a Native American Sundance with all sober people out in Texas. I've been exposed, like just a couple of weeks ago, I had a student who was Muslim, and she shared with me how she got recovery through her Muslim religion, which I thought was really cool. I love meditation. I love transcendental meditation. I love centering prayer. So I'm like open to anything that helps me to grow spiritually. But most importantly, it's like what James was saying. To me, I feel God when I'm looking into other people's eyes. Even when people hurt me, I still look at them as if like they're God's kids. So I have to love them and respect them and try and see God in them. So I'm always cognizant of that. And I'm always cognizant of the fact that God puts all this amazing stuff in my life. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is no coincidence. Like this, God works in my life on a daily basis. And I feel like working the 12 steps. The joy of living is in the 12 steps. And I feel like if you do the 12 steps, then there's no way you can't have a spiritual experience or spiritual experiences. I get spiritual experiences every single day. As a matter of fact, tonight when I go home, I hope James will give me a spiritual experience. Ba-dum, boom. All right. But I mean, you know, and I joke about things like that, but I mean, just laughing and humor. And I loved Wynette's jokes were just great today. I mean, just the power of laughter. It's so cleansing and freeing. And how can that not be God? You know? So anyway, and I feel God looking in all of your eyes this weekend, and I feel that peace that I am where I'm supposed to be in your midst. So thank you.
And Lynn, if you would come up and share this too, honey.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.